we are covering the key differences between a mortgage and a deed of trust for the national portion of the real estate exam. Understanding how these security instruments function is a fundamental part of the finance section of your test. When a property owner borrows money, they must provide the lender with a security instrument that collateralizes the property. On your exam, the most common instruments you will encounter are the mortgage and the deed of trust. Starting with the mortgage, it is essential to recognize that this is a two-party instrument. The parties involved are the mortgagor and the mortgagee. One of the most common traps on the exam is mixing these two up. The mortgagor is the borrower who is giving the mortgage to the lender. The mortgagee is the lender who is receiving the mortgage. If you see a question about who holds the mortgage, remember that the lender holds it as security for the debt. In a mortgage scenario, the borrower typically retains both legal and equitable title to the property. This is common in lien theory states. If the borrower defaults, the lender must usually go through a judicial foreclosure. This means the lender has to file a lawsuit in a court of law to prove the default and obtain a court order to sell the property. You should anticipate questions that ask about the length and complexity of this process, as judicial foreclosure is significantly slower and more expensive than the alternative. Moving on to the deed of trust, the exam will test your understanding of its three-party structure. The three parties are the trustor, who is the borrower, the beneficiary, who is the lender, and the trustee, who is a neutral third party. In this arrangement, the trustor conveys naked legal title to the trustee. This is a very specific term that often appears in exam questions. Naked legal title means the trustee holds the title only to the extent necessary to carry out the terms of the trust, specifically the power to sell the property if the borrower defaults. The borrower maintains equitable title, which gives them the right to possess and enjoy the property. The standout feature of the deed of trust for lenders is the non-judicial foreclosure process. This is made possible by a power of sale clause contained within the deed of trust itself. If the borrower defaults, the beneficiary instructs the trustee to initiate a sale. Because the trustee already holds the legal title, they can sell the property without going to court. This makes the deed of trust much more efficient for lenders than a mortgage. Watch out for trick questions that ask who the beneficiary is. Many students incorrectly guess the trustee, but the beneficiary is always the lender because they are the ones benefiting from the loan payments. A helpful mnemonic to keep this straight on your exam is the phrase, 3 is for trust. This reminds you that a deed of trust has three parties and avoids the three-ring circus of a courtroom foreclosure. If you are looking at a question and see two parties, think mortgage and court. If you see three parties, think deed of trust and no court. You must also be prepared for questions regarding what happens when the loan is paid off. In a mortgage state, the lender issues a satisfaction of mortgage, which is recorded to show the debt is cleared. In a deed of trust state, the trustee issues a deed of reconveyance. The exam will often use these terms to see if you can identify which instrument is being discussed. If you see the word reconveyance, you are automatically looking at a deed of trust. Finally, remember that the choice between these instruments often depends on whether the state follows title theory or lien theory. In title theory states, the lender or trustee holds legal title, whereas in lien theory states, the borrower holds legal title. Most exam questions will assume a deed of trust involves the trustee holding that naked legal title to facilitate a faster sale. By focusing on the number of parties and the specific foreclosure path, you will be able to distinguish these two instruments accurately on test day.